Hello YouTubers, this is Road Trek Ralph. This will be my last video in a series of air conditioning videos I just started doing. Anyway, this is going to be the final vintage air versus classic auto air video. This is part 2. The first video I made, I had not really completed a classic auto air install yet, but now that I'm done, I actually found a couple more points for vintage air and a couple more points for classic auto air. Just something to share with the viewers in case you're considering maybe installing one of these kits over the winter. I know a lot of you guys up north do the winter projects. So anyway, I had to take some notes because there's a lot to cover. So we're going to go with the first one here. We're going to cover the advantages of each system. We're going to start with vintage air. So vintage air is a plug-and-play system. There's no bench test necessary. With a classic auto air, you got to bench test the system before you even start installing it. All right, the second one is a drain tube location. On the vintage air, or let's just say this, on the classic auto air kit, the drain tube on a 1967 classic auto air system is right over the headers. Not a very good design, not a very efficient design. On the vintage air system, the drain tube is not over the headers. It's probably about a good 7 or 8 inches away from the headers. So vintage air did better research on that. With vintage air, this is the third point I want to bring up are templates. So when you get the classic auto air instructions, when it comes out to cutting holes or openings or drilling holes or anything, you pretty much have to go by measurements. With vintage air, they include actual templates. Templates make it a little bit easier for some people to drill holes, locate where they're going to put the vents, so on and so forth. So vintage air, good job with those templates. Alright, another thing for vintage air is it is a little cheaper. Alright, vintage air on an average kit, again, I've already done a total of 3 aftermarket air conditioning kits, and vintage air is about $30 to $50 cheaper. But that cost is going to be offset once we get to the advantages of classic auto air. So they get 4 advantages over classic auto air with vintage air. Alright, so classic auto air, we'll just go down the list pretty quickly here. They do have a larger evaporator coil. They have a larger condenser, a larger heater coil. They have a separate heater and evaporator coils. That's good. That way you don't get the residual heat from the heater coil getting into your cold evaporator coil. The hoses and lines come straight out the firewall. There's no need to have to hide everything like with the vintage air kit. The new kits for the 67 for first gen Camaro requires you pretty much to hide all your hoses, and that could be an inconvenience later on if you're gonna if you have to do any maintenance where you have to maybe tighten up a hose clamp or maybe even replace the heater hose or something. With the vintage air, you got to take off one of the fenders, either the outer fender or inner fender. With the classic auto air, you don't have to worry about that because the hoses come straight out the firewall. With the classic auto air, the hoses are pre-crimped. With the vintage air, they're not pre-crimped. You have to take them somewhere to get them crimped. That could be costly. The classic auto air, the control panel. The standard control panel for their kit is the updated control panel. It doesn't require you to use your old, a squeaky, ugly control panels. With vintage air, what comes standard with their kit is like a retrofit, where you have to retrofit your old controls to work with the new system. Again, classic auto air, they include that control panel with the kit at no additional cost. Another advantage is the evaporator housing on a classic auto air can be opened. Okay, what that means is in the future, let's say you need to clean out the evaporator. Okay, because these kits, they don't have a provision for in-cab air filter, so eventually the evaporator is going to get dirty. With a vintage air kit, that evaporator housing is permanently sealed. It's molded. You cannot open it. With the Classic Auto Air, you can remove remove one of the panels and actually get in there and clean that evaporator if you need to do that. Another one, the glove box. Okay, so go to the glove box. With the Vintage Air kit, they require you to use your old glove box. And if it's the original glove box, it's probably crumbling apart. They require you to use your old glove box, but they give you a template to cut it. So you have to cut your old glove box. With Classic Auto Air, they just throw in a brand new glove box in the kit. Get a brand new glove box. Okay, and the binary plug fitting. So with Classic Auto Air, it comes with the binary plug fitting. Let me just show you what that is here. So that's the binary switch right there. And you see this, I guess it's a grommet or whatever you want to call it, but this rubber part here. With Vintage Air, it doesn't include that. It really, I don't know why Vintage Air doesn't do that. That thing probably cost a whole, 3 cents. I don't know. But Vintage Air, if you're watching, you guys should throw that in your kit, because it doesn't cost much, but it looks a lot better. Yeah, with Vintage Air, it's actually just 2 wires and attached to the 2 females attached to a male. It doesn't look so great. But anyway, just thought I'd cover that. I wanted to be as biased as possible. Again, it is cheaper. The Vintage Air is a little bit cheaper, $30 to $50. But when you factor in the cost of what you get with the Classic Auto Air, it really comes out more effective if you get a Classic Auto Air. But the decision is yours. The decision is yours. And I hope maybe this helps you. This video helps. Again, this is Road Trek Ralph, just making an unbiased video, just of my observations. That's all they are, my observations. I'm not getting paid by either one. I'm just a common folk. You're common every day. I'm no senator's son. I ain't no fortunate one. All right, Road Trek Ralph signing out. Have a good one.